How you boys like staying at this Ritz-Carlton in Hanover?
Woo! It's nice.
Man, I walked in the foyer. I looked around. I told Julie, I said, Cliff ain't going to like this place. It was, yeah, a little tired.
Well, I was rather proud of myself yesterday. Royce has been coaching me, and he's been coaching me on,
Step one.
What my body.
You don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
What my body language is, like what my demeanor is. Me and Adam got delayed on the train yesterday, sat there for 2 hours, didn't say anything. I said, hey, I'm just going to live in the moment. And then I come in, walk in the foyer, and you are correct. I was like, oh, man. And then later in the afternoon, find out we don't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
Nor does my phone work. And when I asked the lady at the front desk what's going on, she said, well, you didn't pay for that package.
For air conditioning.
And I was like, oh,
What?
okay. I didn't know that was
know
part
it was
of
separate,
a package.
It was an add-on.
Yeah,
I didn't know I could upgrade to aircon.
Yeah, for €250 to €300 a night. I just kind of thought that was given, but maybe maybe I need to do better research next time.
Is that what you said to her?
No. I didn't say that. That was all on the inside. I said very little. I was trying to bite my tongue. I just asked, well, could I speak to the manager? And she said, well, he's not in. And I said, well, when will he be in? Monday.
Yeah.
And today is Friday, and we're pretty much done on Monday.
Yeah,
so
near the end.
I was like, okay, we're just going to have to, as my friend Rand Maimon would say, he says, easy, Cliff, easy.
So he's been coaching you step number one. Calm down. Just calm down.
Just know my body.
Raymond's doing
that. Raymond, not Raymond Noodles, Rand Maimon.
He's doing that.
So, Royce, just how was the beer tours that you went on? Give me just like the quick flyby.
It was really awesome. Got to see one Trappist style brewery. I got to tour it, and it was fascinating. And
Trappist. What's that? Trappist.
Trappist is a word that I think it's mainly in Belgium, but it's
he doesn't really know
about monks.
He's getting he's getting ready to make it up.
I'm processing just to keep it concise. But I think it comes down from Franciscan, and I think it's Cistercian. But yeah,
that sounds right. Yeah,
yeah, and it finally
that's what I was going to say.
That's what I was thinking.
Gets to the word Trappist, which is a certain type of monk. But to make their living, they began to brew beer. In Belgium particularly. And there's 5 nationally recognized monk-brewed Trappist breweries. So it's a unique story, but I got to see one that's in the style. Most Trappists, a lot of the Trappists are closed, so you can't actually get in there, but got to taste the West Flitterin 12, which is regarded by many to be the greatest beer in the world. And it did not disappoint.
Wow.
But you have to go to a pub, and when I tell you it's in the middle of like nowhere, farming country, and there's this pub there that serves West Flitterin. It's pretty amazing.
And is it dark or is it light?
Dark. It's a 12, so it's a quadruple, and it's gone through the process 4 times.
Wow! So you kind of have to chew it.
It's thick, but what you have to watch is that one's 10%.
Come on, Daddy.
Yeah,
pour me a tall one.
This eye will be looking in that direction.
Don't be talking about my eye now. This is season 5. That was last season.
I know. I don't know which one to look at. No, you have a few sips of that, and you won't know which eye to look at. Either.
Oh, right eye's gonna be up here.
It's sneak up on you.
Well, good.
Didn't they have to create some law around that because of some laws about how they processed it? There was some kind of a law somewhere in the 1500s. It's old because they made it in like bathtubs or something.
I think that was about the time they started making roads.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. I'm like, this feels like a
Roads.
pothole conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, so tell me, how many potholes were covered in the making of that beer? It's like, how do those two things go together?
No, I'll find it. I'll
But
tell
yeah,
you
wonderful
about it.
trip in Belgium.
So, Paul, did you ever watch the Yellowstone?
Snippets. I never watched it end to end.
Yeah. What was your favorite? What's one of your favorite characters, Royce, or just?
Man, I love me some Rip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you got a little Rip spirit in you.
Yeah, I've had so many of my friends tell me that, so I do kind of identify with him a little
You look
bit.
like Rip when you were at my house on the tractor and you jumped off after you had drugged the pin and you're like, whoo! I got my man card.
like, yeah, it's like I need a cold beer and a renewed man card. It was awesome.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. And Beth is she's always one of my favorites.
Oh, man.
It's not necessarily the best example of being a great human being, but it makes for great TV.
Yeah, it does. She's an interesting character.
I love the T-shirt that you see ladies wearing sometimes that says, "Don't make me go Beth Dutton on you."
Yeah, so true. For as much as I identify with Rip, I feel like I married a little bit of Beth. Oh, no, she'll say that.
All right.
That's not a slam.
All right.
She's going to see this. She's
All
like,
right. You're
She's
right.
like, you know it too.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite scenes on that was after John Dutton was elected governor. And just to kind of set it up, if you haven't seen it, he's kind of, and spoiler alert, if you're not caught up, you should be by now. But he's walking down the hallway
They all
as
die.
governor. He's walking down the hallway as governor, and he sees these people in a room, and he asks his assistant, he's like, "Hey, who are all those people?" And she's like, "Oh, those are all your advisors." And he was like, "Advising me on what?" She was like, "Well, they're your policy advisors." So he goes in there, and the first thing is there's this guy sitting at the end of the table, at the head of the table, and he's like, "You're in my chair." So he makes the guy get out of the chair, and the guy comes around the table, and he asks him what they're talking about. And when he gets to the guy that was sitting in the chair, he said, "I see here that we're canceling a gas lease to put in a solar farm. And the reason why they canceled the gas lease was because it was impacting the sage grouse." Mm-hmm. And so this guy starts defending, why they are going to solar and that natural gas had impact on the sage grouse. But to put the solar panels in, they were going to clear like 8,000 acres. And he was like, "Let me ask you a question." He said, the 8,000 acres, what are you clearing? And he's like, "Sagebrush." And he says, "And you don't feel like clearing 8,000 acres of sagebrush is going to impact the sage grouse?"
Imagine
he was like, "There's no empirical evidence on it." And he was like, "You know what?" He's like, "What scares me is that you're serious. You're looking at me, not kidding, not joking, saying that you're going to tear out 8,000. I mean, quantifying 8,000 acres is pretty hard to do. I mean, that's almost like a city, right?" And he was like, "You're going to tear that out and have zero impact on the sage grouse." And then he fires everybody in the room, which is just, classic John Dutton TV. But I mean, how many things I know that's TV, that's not a real scenario, but we could probably find some real scenarios. I feel like that's a little bit of a common theme that's going on, is that sometimes we're seeing things happen in life where it's almost like this has zero common sense in it. You guys have anything in life that you feel like kind of relates to that?
Yes, I feel like Paul has a lot that he wants to share on that.
Oh, well, yeah.
You guys act like we didn't do any prep on this.
We did. Yeah, there's a lot of that. The world in which we live in is becoming more and more nonsensical by the day. And without going too far, but you see a prevalence of desire over truth. Now, we could argue what is truth, but and let me just make sure I give my definition: that which accurately corresponds to reality. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean by truth.
Yeah.
That which but desire, we have been placing so much more emphasis on desire that truth doesn't have the same value, it would seem generally in our culture, as whatever I want at any given moment. And
So
that's playing out in so many ways.
So in that, I know it's a fictional story for right now, but in that scenario, this guy had empirical evidence that natural gas was making some kind of impact.
Sure. Because any one of us can be selective in what study we want.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Sure, I'm sure it does.
Yeah.
But it might be less than the impact on solar, but nobody's done a study yet.
Right.
Because that's the golden child, so to speak, of
Right.
alternative energy.
Yeah.
And not against solar, but do we care about what's true?
Yeah.
What's actually accurate according to reality?
My grandfather used to say the studies of margarine versus butter. It was butter for years, and then they come up with margarine, and it's like, no, margarine has better health for you. And so everybody's eating that, and then studies come out. It's like, no, butter's better.
Butter's
so
better.
It's really like whatever empirical evidence like gets pushed
Yes.
to the surface is the narrative that you have a certain group hold on to. And then it's almost like whoever gets the loudest voice,
Right.
yells the loudest, whatever, is the winner. And I think in today's society, the challenge is socials give everybody the ability to yell and get momentum and get steam, and whatever gets caught is like, oh, that's what we're going with.
Right.
And there's not a lot of pushback, because then you can be like, well, you're anti-science because this scientist wrote this.
Right.
But you could also say, hey, there's another scientist. It's kind of like where RFK is right now on the vax thing. I mean, he has said thousands of times he's not anti-vax. What he's saying is just because one group needs it doesn't necessarily mean that the other group needs it.
Right.
I was reading in New York Times a lot of coverage on that vaccine topic, and of course they're going to have a slant. You know, I actually read their stuff because of the slant. Because I just like to see it, but they couch the whole topic in like they tied it to a religious thing, and they put it all in Texas, right? So this vax thing, like they didn't say we're non-biased information here about all this topic, right? Non-biased information, but we're going to couch it all in a religious setting, like the same people that are non-vaxxers are homeschoolers from Texas, whose pastors get up and preach about this stuff. You know what I mean? So you're saying, you know, that everybody that's a non-vaxxer, that's the category you want to put them in.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about the science. It is a social, it's like a belief system thing, you know?
Yeah. So you're saying what they're doing is they're tying the vax thing is one category, and that's very scientific. And then they're tying it to a social issue
that they think that the readers are going to say, oh, those are a bunch of rednecks.
Those are crazy.
Idiots,
right.
crazies.
Marginalized.
Yeah. And so now you've tied the two together without saying, you know, it's just a bunch of idiots that believe in non-vaxxing.
Yeah, because it's pretty safe to say that the homeschooled Texas crowd is probably not reading the New York Times.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But the whole group that is reading the New York Times may feel like the Texans are a little bit off, unhinged, maybe even. Right.
Well, in the whole thing, it's like with truth or desire, right? Are we going after facts because our motive is justifying what we've already made our mind up about? Or do we really want to discover that which accurately corresponds to reality? And that's more of a cultural malaise there, is that do we really am I willing to alter my opinion if I search and dig into the facts? And one more thing on that is, do people even really care what's real?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What's true in this issue? Whatever the issue may be.
I think one
true?
of the things that's come out of the pod that I think we all agree on is human flourishing. And are we really willing to
Are we willing?
Are we willing?
Are we really right now
willing to say, okay, I do have my kind of belief system, right? But if I drill that belief system down so deep, then what I can do is trample on other humans And I feel like my belief system should be based in both of your flourishing. Everybody else is flourishing. And if I'm unwilling to see how I'm driving my stakes of belief down so deep that it's actually hurting someone else, I think that's where things start to get convoluted. And you don't see somebody as, and I think that's what they're doing with RFK. What he's trying to say is why would we take the risk in creating potential harm? He's just saying, let's do some studies because we know that kids don't necessarily need it in general. Like, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but let's do just a little bit more studying before we mandate that this has to be done. Did it save a lot of people's lives? Yes, and that's fantastic. Like, I've got the vaccine, but I just think people's belief systems get so deep down in that sometimes they're just unwilling to see the other person as a person and hear them out.
I mean, a lot of people have tied, autism and kids that are on the spectrum to this flood of vaccines that's happening before they're even in school. Right.
Yeah.
So what they did come up with is they're going to, spacing those out is a factor in possibly, less occurrence of autism. But they don't know. You know what I mean? It's not a science. There's no empirical evidence.
Yeah.
Well, and then with everything so charged as it is, we can't even make a hypothesis, right? Or just a speculative statement of I'm curious, or data seems to be like the remark you just made for a certain group, you would be anti-vax. So we already would rather label than listen and explore because we're more in a mode of self-justifying our bias, than it is to discover, because we feel like we've already concluded. And I just saw something that I thought was fascinating. A psychologist was talking about why can you not seem to reason with someone who has some really deep set beliefs. And that extremism or fundamentalism is another way of looking at it, is that you have so identified with a certain mindset or set of beliefs that when someone presents new information, the brain is not in a mode to rationalize with the information. You're only seen as the enemy because you presented something that does not fit into the outline you've personally identified with.
Yeah.
So that's really important too, that you don't become your idea, or you don't let your ideas become you, so that you can continue to grow in information and not treat people as enemies if they disagree.
Yeah. And I don't mean this insulting, but I think what happens is we buy into labeling.
Yeah.
But we're not really educated on it.
Absolutely.
So we really can't talk our way out of it. So like when you really push in on somebody, they can be super passionate. Once you get past just the kiddie side of the pool, you start getting in deep waters and they're like, yeah, I'm not really sure. I don't know. And then they just go back to whatever the taglines are or the talking points, whatever. Case in point, like one of the things that I heard from a regulatory common sense that doesn't make any sense is back when Elon was getting SpaceX going and they were trying to do the re-land of the rocket. When they did the initial launch, there was all this concrete there was a concrete pad that essentially held all the structure for the rocket. Well, to make sure that the flames, I don't know if you've ever had a cutting torch or anything, had any flame around concrete, but it doesn't take very much and that stuff will explode like a bomb. Well, imagine all those thrusters of thousands of degrees hitting down on that pad. They knew it was going to cause the concrete to explode. So they got the EPA pre-approved them to have potable water. The water was clean. They had already tested if it would get any contaminants in it, and they knew that it would run back off the pad and get into the water stream. So the EPA approves it. Whenever the rocket takes off, they didn't put enough water on it. And the water was actually evaporating faster, so it couldn't cool the concrete. And like the pad just basically imploded, right? So it was all in the news because it almost hit some people, kind of crazy type thing. Well, the EPA comes in and fines them. Well, they didn't fine them for like not having structural integrity or anything like that. They fined them for wastewater runoff. And the fine was going to be $250,000. And so Elon, being Elon, he was like, okay. He said, I disagree with you. You gave me the permit, said this was okay. Now you're saying it's not okay. And he said, we're going to take you to court. And they're like, well, we don't recommend that because we're the ones who issue your permit and you can't launch again without the permit. So SpaceX is a largely government funded type deal, and they're being held hostage by government regulation. And that's one of those, going back to our John Dutton Yellowstone thing. It's like, are you serious? Like, you gave me the permit for this, and now because you're on that side of it, you're like, you're not going to give me the permit. That's the kind of thing that I feel like people are getting really, really tired of, and can lead to frustrations that spill out and spill over into other types of things.
Yeah, it's always even something like that, which I can't speak to whatever the EPA was doing. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Whatever made them make. But we look at it on the surface and we know it's absurd. And whatever the issue is said to be is not the issue.
Yeah.
You know, and it comes back to, it's like, well, what is the game you're playing? You know, do we really, and I go, you said something earlier, and I would just want to throw this and at least remind us of it, is there are some things that just seem to be anti-human flourishing on some level, right? And I understand, you know, you can have your sides of whatever, but like, do we really truly care about what's going to help us all overall in the end?
Without going back to the talking points of how, you know, whether it's climate change or
whatever
gun laws or, you know, whatever it is, it's like, okay, can we just get back to first principles? Like, can we just bake this back down to brass tacks? Let's put our red hats in this side and our blue hats in that side. And can we just come to the table as humans for a second and just have a conversation?
What's best?
Yeah. Then we can disperse that back out to our constituents or whatever that needs to be to help us make a decision.
Absolutely. And these bureaucracies become little fiefdoms that have their own survival, self-justifying agenda. You know, it's no longer what helps the whole picture or as many people as possible, but rather what just keeps them in control, what lets them flex. And that's typical of bureaucracy over time.
So another one that I want to talk about just a little bit, because this is like very impactful for me. Like, this is a real-time story that's going on. Is so most people know that I'm in the tungsten industry, and
really?
with
got him.
Something came in the mail for you.
It was a poorly timed joke.
So within the industry, one of the things that we face is we use cobalt as a binder for the metal. So tungsten is not a metal in of itself. It has to be alloyed or sintered. It's actually a ceramic. Not to nerd out on that, but it takes cobalt to get it into
you do ceramics.
I do ceramic. I do things. Yeah. It takes cobalt.
I could see you in ceramics. Are there old ladies in that class?
Different. Okay, I got 'em. I'm feeling you now. Yes. Yeah, I get my potter's wheel going. Yeah. So, back to the point. Cobalt is used in sintering these products, and cobalt is a carcinogen. Or let me say this: cobalt has been empirical evidence has proven that cobalt could be carcinogenic.
Is it in a certain state it could be too? Is there a part of that?
Yes. And it's all could be.
Yeah.
Could lead to this, or in mice did this. So it's this, you know, kind of, I don't know, moving
even
theory.
That's fuzzy.
Yeah, it's not it's not like clear. Like this bullet, when it comes out of this gun, will do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can't put that back in the barrel when it comes out, over and done with, right? It's not that clear. So when that happened, when they discovered that back in probably the mid 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s, they started trying to figure out how they were going to regulate that. Well, the EU has very stringent laws on cobalt. Well, they also have very stringent laws on what is hazardous waste. So you guys have been to the plant. You see what we do at Tungco, and a barrel of tungsten carbide soft scrap is all it is it's tungsten carbide solids, very fine like a powder, that just has cutting solution in it. There's no hazard to it at all. I mean, you could take a bath in it, and like the mud baths, like you could get a tub of tungsten and get in it for whatever reason if you wanted to, and you're going to be fine unless you had an allergy to it. I mean, it's non-harmful, right? Mm-hmm. So they've created this law that is so stringent to where it basically is considered hazardous waste. So what that means is if I buy that material from a supplier, or even my customer buys it from me, you have to have various very specific permitting for your plant. You have to have a carrier that is licensed to carry that hazardous waste. And then there's very specific paperwork that has to go end to end from us to them. If you're ever audited and you don't have that right paperwork, it could be very, very, very...
So in that barrel with the solution, there is cobalt.
There is cobalt.
Because it's the binder or the centering...
Correct.
But it's in a solid connection to the tungsten.
Correct.
In a metal. It's a solid.
It's centered, yeah. And it is, I mean, just like pond mud, if you were to pick pond mud up, it's, there is
sludge.
There's a sludge, and the mud is not water, but it's very wet, right? It has a very high moisture content in it. That's what sludge is. That's what the tungsten sludge looks like. I mean, but it's still in metal form. So the cobalt is inside of it's called WC. So tungsten carbide, and within that carbide, it would either have cobalt or nickel. So it's not individually separated like where it's going to be airborne. Now, the hypocrisy in it is when that product is new, either as a powder or as a metal powder or as a centered part, this regulation doesn't exist.
So if you have a bit that has the exact same content in it, packaged up to go to somebody, it's not considered a contaminant.
It's a product.
But when it becomes a part,
it could be a finished part, centered part, or it could even be the powder. So the powder before it's centered is still considered a product.
Unreal.
And when it's in a straight dry powder, then it could actually get airborne. Like there is a chance that the cobalt could be airborne.
But that doesn't hit the regulation.
None of those, no regulations
So
exist.
it's actually more apt to be hazardous in its finished product than it would be in this sludge.
Actually in its beginning stage.
A bag of that powder.
Because its origin is as a powder. So it goes from a powder to like a centered like this mug here to a hard part. But at none of those stages is it considered hazardous. You can ship it with any carrier in the world you want, in any kind of packaging. It just has to have a specific label on it. That's it.
But if you grind apart the leftover grindings, and tell me the name, is that
sludge,
sometimes with all the cooling fluid and everything in it, now is hazardous.
Another technical term they would use is swarf.
Swarf.
Yeah.
Wow, I've just learned something.
Yeah. So yes, but to your point, when they're grinding it, it goes and it creates a sludge, because what they're actually effectively doing is when they're making parts, they have to have coolant to keep the diamond wheel from overheating. And so that coolant, when it mixes with we wouldn't say actually turnings, because it's not like chipping it away like when you're drilling something. It's actually making a very, very fine powder is what it's doing. So when they filter that out, that's where you get the sludge, because they want that coolant to stay clean, because they're on their diamond machines, they're constantly reusing that coolant. So they capture the sludge, but they can't capture all of the moisture. So it'll have somewhere between like 5 and 10% moisture. So that like when we receive a drum, you might even get like a thin layer of liquid on the top of the drum. But now in today's world, it's mainly water based. So it's pretty clean.
So I know you want to get to the regulation piece.
Yeah.
Where would carbide ever be a threat as a carcinogenic? What kind of process would it have to be going
That's
to?
what we're talking about. It makes no sense.
I'm saying I know that in the shipping, like where would it be? I mean, let's just say it is carcinogenic.
Because
where would it be a threat?
You would basically have to eat.
Yeah.
But I mean, what about breathing it while you're in a process of turning a wheel? Or
over long periods of time? Possibly.
So you'd have to be exposed to it in that kind of setting. It's in a barrel. It's on a truck. It's being shipped to a warehouse. And now there's a regulation on it.
And doesn't the fluid, cleaning or cooling fluid, it's trapping any airborne aspect of anything that could have got loose in the grinding.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
That early stage is actually the most dangerous, you would think, is if you're inhaling cobalt powder.
Correct.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So there is an EU law. It's called Decision 3 under the waste regulation. And it's Section 5 of Decision 3 that allows for byproduct of any type of production that would then declassify it as a hazardous waste. Well, the production of tungsten sludge, the way it's created, fits that category. But somewhere years ago, some mall cop, no offense to mall cops, but just saying, Paul Blart. Yeah. Somehow got it approved to where, no, this is what they call amber waste. And that's what got adopted. And now there's no fighting against it. And it gets even worse. So what we're facing today is, so everywhere we ship within EU, we have to do this amber waste, hazardous waste type shipping. This year, they came in on a customer that we have and said, no, you can't do this because it's got so much cobalt in it, and that could be impacting your employees. Now, get this. So they said you have to change its form before you can bring it in for processing. So now what they're having to do is they're having to ship that material out somewhere else and have it pre-processed, which is only drying it. So now it is airborne.
Yeah.
So they've dried it.
There's more powder possible.
And all they did to change it was dry it. That nothing else has changed. The moisture is now out of it. Now it comes back. And so they're adding cost to it because now they have to ship it there and back because it's an outside processor. They have to pay that outside processor. And then it comes back and still goes through the same process it was going to go through the entire time. And if we get back to first principles and just the basics of why are we recycling, it's for the environment. Mm-hmm. Like we're trying to reuse and not get more material out of the ground. And all that's happening, you can say, well, we're doing employee, benefits, whatever. It's complete bullshit. Like none of those decisions are making a healthier space for the employees, because this particular company that I'm referencing, the air capture and water runoff capture that they have is almost pharmaceutical. Like that's the level of, and they're dealing with, if you don't know tungsten, it's always gray. There's no way to be clean, but you walk in there and you could, if your ham and cheese sandwich, white bread falls on the floor, you pick it up and it's still white on the other side. That's clean. And so that is a scenario that's impacting us. And then we're just a small industry. So is that small industry going to take on the EU, or would we take on the U.S. government? Like, how much real influence do you have? And so these regulations are written, and then the people who are enforcing them are basically your bureaucrats or your people so you could literally have one or two people that are responsible for that region, and they could be costing the entire industry millions of dollars, and you don't really have anything to push back on, because they'll be like, well, the empirical evidence, from the last 20 years says this, and it's like, no, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. That's a law that got implemented that we've been force-fed, and nobody else has come back and done any real study on that.
And this is worth saying again, just kind of as a simplistic statement, all of this is harming recycling. Yes. All of this is making recycling more difficult, more expensive. And it's astounding how we can't often get out of our own way when it comes to trying to do the right thing.
100%. Yeah, it's insane. So, my thing is how do we get to, is it even possible to come back to, okay, we know science is not necessarily common sense. You get into some of these higher levels of learning and whatever, I get in deep water super fast, but what's it going to take for us to come back to say, all right, yes, I'm in recycling. I do care about the environment. We were recycling in the 60s when it wasn't even sexy, right? So we were green before green was a thing. But how do we get back to say, hey, look, well, if your empirical evidence is saying this, all right, I'm not going to say that that's untrue per se, but is it preventing us from doing this over here? And we got to be able to make a decision in some way, shape, or form, because if not, then all you do is you put so much in the way that it actually prevents the human flourishing that we're kind of talking about being able to do.
Are you thinking that this has a play with the whole children's right to change their sex, to go in a sexual transition? There's lots of fighting around the laws about that. People are very polarized on it.
I'm not sure I'm comfortable going on record with that.
Man, we just shifted gears.
Well, there's a lot of regulation.
We just bailed on him.
What?
Well, this is on the table. I do want to kind of actually try to answer your question a little bit.
I asked the question and Paul went straight trans. He's like,
well, let's talk about that. But I do want to say that all good science is really a search for whatever's true. And I want to say that definition again, that which accurately corresponds to reality.
Yep.
Okay. So good science.
And if it's true, it can withstand scrutiny.
Yes, absolutely. But then, okay, what is a good basis or context for truth? It would have to be, yes, we want to steward the planet, but we also want to steward humanity.
Yeah.
So that the greatest good for the most amount of people should always be the highest ethical value.
Yeah.
And that would be arguably what we would call love.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I care about my family, but I also care about all of humanity. So that return to that in some sense, right? To where when it's clearly not that should be a red flag, which is say, man, we've made this more convoluted than it should be.
Well, let's go back to Paul's little introduction to trans. If the highest ethical value is love, so let's just use that as our baseline, not any kind of theology or this or that. Let's just use it as love. Ask your question again, Paul, about the trans thing. Like,
in what context?
Are you just from a regulatory type?
Yeah, should parents be able to walk into a hospital and sign off on a kid having, sex change?
Yeah.
Or should the state take it away from parents' right to give consent to that? Is where it is in some places, which is disturbing. And
we kind of are dealing with both of those just like that. In my state of Kentucky, our governor made it where teachers are forbidden from telling parents if the student comes to them and says, hey, I feel like I'm trans and I need some help. It is against the law for them to tell the parent.
Yeah, and in the Supreme Court, they made a temporary decision for one individual student that is transitioning to, and it's even funny how they write it, because you're like, well, is it a guy? Is it a girl being transitioned to a boy, or a boy transitioned to a girl? Anyway, they can't even talk about it straight. You know what I mean? Like, so they made a temporary decision for this one kid that if he now, I think, transitions to a boy, can go into the boys' bathroom and use the restroom. Mm-hmm. Right? For this one. Now they're being real clear. We're not saying this for everybody. We're just making a temporary decision because this is the one that came to the table. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to make a universal decision here. One kid that is biologically a girl transitions to a boy and goes to the boys' restroom. I mean, there you go.
So if we're using love as the basis, mean, even whether I know
It's a biological fact he has to go to the restroom.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think maybe just to kind of narrow it down a little bit, what we're talking about is whether it's the Supreme Court, the states, federal regulation, whatever,
Teachers, parents.
How do we say back to that baseline of love? Because I think that's let's just say, let me steel man it. Let me be on this side of it for just a second. So let's say I'm a parent who has a kid that is struggling with that, and psychologically they are very much struggling with that. Not being condescending or saying that doesn't exist, because I really do believe that exists today. I think as a parent, nobody wants to see their kid struggle. Like, you don't want to see your kid wrestle with depression. You don't want to see your kid wrestle with being bullied at school. I mean, the list goes on and on. So if my kid is struggling with that, I think the question from that side is, do I not have the right to take my kid to have this surgery or whatever? How does one say in love, like if you're opposed to that, how do you say in love that, well, just because the law says it's okay doesn't necessarily mean that that's sensical or should be done? How do we do that? How do we get there and have that conversation?
Yeah, I think that so many times we're trying to find institutional answers for things that are individual.
Okay.
Like a lot of love situations and scenarios to express love and to be kind and loving are relational. They're a one-on-one situation. But when you try to then institutionalize it or put a law or regulation around it, then you have all of these one-off case things, and then it becomes like this fight when you try to make a regulation for all. I think that's where the real rhetoric and the hatefulness starts coming in, the fight and the polarizing of it versus relationships. It's just easier on a relational level to show love, right? Institutionally, not so easy.
Well, we live in a day, too, to where, like I'll say again, truth, was it Lady Wisdom? I have to get theological on this a bit, but she's in the street asking, is there anyone? That's kind of the personification of wisdom or truth a lot of times is, and I would say wisdom would be the use of truth in love or with experience, something along those lines. How I would define wisdom is that you have experience, but you're using truth in the most loving, pro-human way possible.
Yeah.
That would be wisdom. And wisdom's in the streets in Proverbs saying, hello, anybody.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think we are to a certain degree, because desire has been put on a pedestal above that which accurately corresponds to reality.
Yeah.
So where am I going with this? Well, there are a lot of options that are available institutionally, and there are things that do need to be talked about on a personal level. I'm not here to destroy someone's opinion about how they may see their own gender. What I look at is that the words male and female have always historically been tied to biology. And now we're changing terms from a relatively small percentage of the global population who have these feelings about their gender or their understanding of themselves. And now we're going to change the terms or understanding of what it is across all of the planet's biology. And that's problematic for the greater understanding of how other people see themselves.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's a wise choice at all, because I think it was less than 1% before maybe it may still be less than 1%.
And you're not questioning whether they're experiencing those feelings
at all
any more than anything else. I think the thing that's concerning for me in giving permission to do self-harm, because that's what I feel like it is. If you're mutilating your body,
yes,
it's self-harm.
Yep.
And if you rewound the clock 20 years ago and said, hey, the federal government and certain states are going to pass regulation to where a kid can walk into a doctor's office and say, hey, I want a certain part of my body cut off.
or my hormones blocked,
or my hormones blocked, right? But we won't tell your parents. People would have been like, no way, not
ever.
That would never happen. So then my question is now you have Canada passing the MAID law. You know what that is? The MAID. So it's assisted suicide, and you don't have to be declared terminal. You can just say, hey, I've determined in myself that I don't want to live anymore because of my depression. And you can actually go pay somebody to be for assisted suicide. So if we keep on this path, instead of saying, hey, man, let's just try to get you some help. I would rather pay for you to try to get some help to see if we can get you pushed past this than for you to end your own life. I mean, I know it sounds absurd, but how far are we away from a kid being like, hey, I'm dealing with the depression because I'm being bullied. I'm being cyberbullied. I'm being bullied at school, and I just don't have the will to live anymore. And now it's okay for them to get assisted suicide. I know that sounds absolutely absurd, but the other scenario 20 years ago would sound absurd.
So the question is when can we intervene with someone's desire with truth or the potential search for greater truth?
Yeah.
Because we all know that whatever I want or however I feel at any given moment doesn't always correlate accurately to reality. I could feel like you don't like me right now, and then nothing could be further from the truth in how you really feel. But I know you don't like me. But what I'm saying
I was going to bite on
that. It was a bad example. I should have used a different.
It was a little. It felt a little too heavy to go after it right then.
Well, this is a valid point because we've begun to shape institution around feelings and desire, and I've noticed now that there's a lot of shame if you question someone's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it preference.
Yeah.
If you can't bring biological science into the conversation because you're shaming, and that's not it at all. Is that it's a bigger topic, but we're just slowly drifting further away from when can we apply any facts-based, science-based, truth-based conversation. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm shaming you. It's that in a pro-human sense, it is incredibly harmful to redefine male and female across the global population of humans. That is potentially harmful to say when you no longer can understand it as being correlated to biology. It's like asking the question, and I know it's almost cliche now, but like, what is a woman? What is a man? When you can't answer that anymore, that's problematic for humanity writ large.
Yeah.
I think what you were saying, then can the few who feel, that
Certainly.
they have a different reality create policy for the whole? I think that is where you can draw a line. Fairly draw a line, and policy-wise and institutionally, you can fairly draw a line there. But when you step over the line and try to give them truth, like, hey, I went into a coffee shop. There's this short guy at a glance, tattoos.
What's short got to do with it? I mean, I'm 5'7.5".
What are you trying to say,
Well,
Paul?
I couldn't tell if it was a guy or a girl at first.
So what are some other? They were short
and had tattoos.
Okay, you've said two things that sound like me.
It's worth interjecting. I want to do a Paul right here. Do you know that our right brain preconscious is trying to determine someone's gender, and I think it's under 150 milliseconds?
And
because you're trying to see how to behave.
Like this person.
Who are you in the presence of, a male or a female?
This person had a beard, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did. They had a beard, but it was kind of
like a Paul Cook beard, or more like an Adam Howe?
No, it looked like
more like an Adam Howe beard.
It looked like a chia pet. It wasn't. It just wasn't. Didn't have. It didn't give you the sense of. And so I'm like thinking, and then the voice is a little weird, and you're like, oh, this is actually a girl trying to be a guy. And who are you fooling here? Nobody's fooled. This is like, it's like the emperor's clothes, it's like.
But do you feel like from a free, let's just talk.
But I'm just saying truth, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but from a freedom perspective, I mean, if they're working in a coffee shop, they're probably an adult by then, right? This person's
Absolutely.
an adult.
Oh, yeah.
So they're free to participate, right? I mean, they can. We're not saying they shouldn't be able to do that as an adult or.
Well, I mean, I don't have control over what they do any more than I have control over anybody, what they do with their life. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying they're not fool. You were talking about truth.
Yeah.
Nobody's fool. The truth is you're a girl trying to be a guy.
Yeah. Or you're a biological female. You know, that's where I'm at is I don't want to harm anyone who feels a certain way about their gender. But at the same time, does that suddenly become the reality for the majority of human beings on planet Earth, just to scale it out?
Yeah.
And that is not helpful to pro-human.
Yeah.
But there's a pro-human aspect in a minority who feels a certain way, and how do we care for them adequately and love and respect them? But I don't think that includes redefining how we understand gender, and by that, it's tied to biology for the rest of the planet.
Yeah. So let's just kind of land it with a couple things here. We started it with regulation that's nonsensical. So it's like that story from Yellowstone where, it's empirical evidence that this is that, but you're completely leaving a whole nother story out, right?
Exactly.
So whether it's
Conveniently.
Yeah, it's conveniently left out. So whether it's the scenario that I said about something that is really helping the planet that is being spun as though it's harmful to employees or whatever, to whether, should transgender people have the right for this to be regulated or that. In Canada, should somebody who is depressed and otherwise 30-year-old healthy,
or if you want to go to school, do you have to have all those vaccinations?
Yeah, that. And then what I think we've all agreed over the years, it seems like that we've said is sensical, is that you need to be 21 to drink. Part of that is because adolescents tend to not make the best decisions.
Yeah, their brain's not even fully developed.
In general.
Yeah. And
then you put alcohol on top of that, it's pretty much guaranteed that the majority of them are going to make a bad decision. Nobody disagrees with that. And that is a good example of a regulation that's really based in love and human flourishing. It's not to penalize them. It's actually to help them.
Right.
Be like, hey, you just need to, if we make this free access where you can a 12-year-old can walk in a liquor store and get a pint, it's probably not going to lead to more love and human flourishing.
But we're going to trust an 8-year-old to tell us that they need gender reassignment surgery. And then not tell the parents to be a part of that process. Yeah.
Exactly.
Scary stuff.
So I think just to land the plane, what we're advocating for is we're not saying that people aren't dealing with these feelings.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that cobalt can't be carcinogenic.
Exactly.
Right. I'm not saying that it can't. What I'm saying is that
or that Paul doesn't love potholes.
Or that Paul doesn't love roads and asphalt and potholes and all those things.
Much it costs to maintain.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not saying that.
We're not saying that any of those things aren't real. What we're saying is what is it going to take for us to put some of our policy to the side and just get back to best practices and be like, what's my root here? What is my root of why I want this? And am I seeking to understand where the other person is coming from? And how can we land on something, even if it is a policy or a regulation? We're not for complete deregulation. We're just saying it needs to really be doing what it says it's doing. And if we really want to protect kids, we need to make sure that we're looking at more than just their feelings.
Right. And leaders and lawmakers doing more in regards to what you're saying than just trying to please a base that'll get them reelected.
Yeah.
Like truly, like what's best for everyone.
Yeah. That part, we could probably do a whole episode on that. That part is very scary.
It is.
Because there's zero accountability on them to stick to anything.
Right.
They can move with the wind or jump on whatever.
That goes back to that self-justifying nature that's driving a lot of decision-making in the modern era. It's like we don't really care what accurately corresponds to reality, but what self-justifies whatever I want for it. And leaders and lawmakers do that constantly.
All right. Well, this has been a heavy one, but this has been another episode of the Misfit Social Podcast. We had
Thanks, Paul.
the Great White Sage and and the Grand Interrupter and
Yes.
and the Wizard of Wonder coming to you from the non-Ritz-Carlton in Hanover.
The non-aircon.
Yeah, the non-aircon, non-Ritz-Carlton in Hanover, Germany. It's been a good one, boys. Love you. Let's go.